welcome, fellow Wasteland survivors. I'm Dean. Thanks for stopping in, hanging out with me. We're at Spectacle Island, and we're checking out this magnificent sunrise. Oh, yeah, that is awesome. So cool. Well, it looks like we're going to have great weather for today's video, but just in case, we do got a clear day or clear weather shell loaded. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, if I'm sounding a little bit different today, that is because I will be doing the voiceover as I'm showing the demonstration. So I guess in a way we're kind of live. I make a lot of mistakes, so hopefully I don't make too many today. But if we do, you guys will get the opportunity to, laugh at me. Alright, well, today's video is a basic introduction to the logic gates. Now, yes, I know the last video out it says basic introduction, but I'm feeling that it's just not basic enough, and it's still too hard to understand. Plus, I've had a couple of friends comment saying, yeah, Bones, we just didn't get this one. So, we're going to take our time. We're going to look at them a lot closer. We're going to see how they work and what it takes to make them work. I've been thinking about it since that video came out, and I think maybe the reason why we're having a hard time understanding logic gates is because of the word logic. And realistically, all the logic has to do with a logic gate is explain logically how the switch is working or why it's working the way it is. The gate doesn't make the logic describes how the logic gate is working and why it's working that way. So, I don't think we're going to use logic at all from here on out. We're just going to talk about how the switch works, because that is exactly what it is. It's a switch that requires multiple inputs to make it work the way that that switch works. Okay, enough of that. Let's get going. All right, first of all, we need to jump into the logic gate section and pull them out. Now, there are 7 basic types of logic gates. Fallout, we have all 7 of them. There are 3 we're not going to look at today, and we'll come across them here in a second. But let's give them all a quick look over. Transmits power if all inputs have power. This is the AND logic gate. Alright, the second one is the NAND logic gate. Transmits power unless all inputs have power. The next one is the NOR logic gate. Transmits power when no inputs have power. Okay, this is the first of the 3 logic gates that we're not going to be looking at today. So we'll just put it over there for right now. Alright, the next logic gate is the NOT logic gate. Transmits power when no inputs have power. Well, isn't that what this one just said was the same thing? Well, that's why the NOT logic gate will be one of the 3 we won't be demonstrating today. We'll save them for more advanced videos. Okay. The next one is the OR logic gate. Transmits power if any input has power. The next one is the XNOR logic gate. Transmits power when all inputs are the same, powered or unpowered. Okay. Now that we've kind of heard that a little bit, we now know that this is the 3rd logic gate that we're not going to be looking at today. Now, we could do a demonstration and see how this works, but we're actually needing it to make these other 2 logic gates work. So since we need to do that, we'll keep that separate and in this category, and we'll talk about them in future videos. Okay, now finally, our last logic gate is, um, okay, friends inviting me to party. Sorry about that. Um, yeah, I'll just gray that out because we are about privacy here on our channel. And this particular friend may not like his name displayed all over YouTube. So, okay, excuse me. The XOR logic gate transmits power if exactly one input has power. All right, cool. Well, we've got a quick look at all 7 of them. So let's go back and let's start with the AND logic gate. Transmits power if all inputs have power. Okay, let's break that down for a second. Transmits power, okay, it's a switch. We know it's going to transmit electricity to a light or something we're wanting to power. So cool, we got that. But now the next part, if all inputs have power. Okay, now what does that mean? Doesn't the word inputs kind of mean plural, like more than one? And especially if we add in if all inputs have power. Well, if we notice a fallout for logic gate has only, well, where it looks like we can only connect 2 connections up to it, or 2 wires. Well, we've got to have an out because it transmits power. So where would we hook the other multiple lines up? Well, if we notice the little emblem here in the center, it's got 2 lines on the left-hand side, and it has 1 line on the right-hand side. Now, this is the symbol for AND, but it also tells us that these are our inputs, these 2 lines on the left, and this is our output. And it's also pointing towards these connections. So maybe the black one is our output. Let's go ahead and connect it to a light box and see. Okay, oh, looky there. The AND logic gate has a drop box, and it says light box out 0 in it. So we were correct in assuming that this is the out. But what's the 0 mean? Okay, well, we'll come to that in a minute. Well, if we were correct in assuming that this is the out, because that line is kind of pointing towards it, then we might be correct in assuming our ins are pointing towards this red connection. And we are. This is where both of our inputs will need to be connected. Now, keep this in mind. It's not really needed right now, but later on it will be. We can actually connect more than 2 connections up to this red connection point. We can also connect less. So let's take a look at that. Since we have got a pretty good look at the logic gate here, let's go ahead and connect it up to 1 power. Okay, I've got 2 switches. We're just going to connect it to 1. Well, if you notice, it's actually on. We can tell it's on because it has the green lights around the red input, and that's letting us know that we've got an input power coming in. Plus, there's an amber light up there, and it's too bright to see it, but it's on. Also, we've got green lights around our output. Also, our light box is working, even though we cannot see it. Okay, let's choose a color. How about, let's see if we can see purple. Purple's my fave. Boy, we really can't, can we? Dang. We just cannot see any of those. There's got to be one here we can see. Do they got a bad weather shell? can, can we put a bad weather shell in? Okay. Um, oh, okay. That one, we can kind of see that one a little bit. All right, we'll use that. Um, okay, our light box is on. Everything is on. Also, if we notice in work mode, our drop box under the AND logic gate now has an extra listing, switched power pylon. Now it doesn't say pylon because that's kind of long and that's why it's dot dot dot, but that's our power coming in, the input. Also, we can notice that the light box out, the switched power pylon in, now has the number 1 beside it, where before the light box out had a 0. Well, what that is that's the numerical representation of power or no power. So instead of having to write off or on or power or no power, a 1 and a 0 is a great way to explain that and it not take up a whole lot of room. So, no power means 0. Power means 1. So anytime that we have power on, it'll say 1. Anytime no power is on, it'll say 0. Okay, now, once again, this logic gate can work with 1, and some of these logic gates all work the same way by connecting them up. It will transmit power with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you want to hook up. We're only going to focus on 2 because that's mainly what you're going to use them with, or for. But even though this has power, you may think to yourself, well, Bones, that was pretty easy. One switch, power, bang, on. Well, what's the switch really doing? It's not really doing anything because our regular switch is turning it off and on when we turn it off and on. So realistically, we wouldn't even need the logic gate. We could just hook the light right to the switch. But the logic gates work a specific way if 2 inputs are connected to it. So basically what the second input does is activate the logic part of the switch. So let's hook a second second line up to our switches, and you know what, let's turn these off real quick. Real quick, let's reread the description of what it's going to take to make the AND logic gate work. Transmits power if all inputs have power. Okay, well that seems pretty obvious. We've got 2 inputs, we've got 2 switches. Alright, let's flip them on. Oh, no. Okay, that didn't come on. Well, we've only got 1 input with power. So let's put the other switch on and, oh, there we go. Yeah, it's working. So with 2 powers, we can make the AND logic gate work. But there's something we kind of need to talk about here real quick. Even though we've got the AND logic gate working, there are a couple of different ways we can switch our switches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a little table here on the right hand side. What this table is showing us is all the possible ways that we can switch these 2 switches on and off. For instance, one switch has 2 ways we can switch it on and off. Of course, on and off. The second switch, same thing, on and off. But when we add the 2 switches together, it now has 4 ways that we can switch these on and off. So this table is going to help explain what I'm talking about. These are called formulas. So the first formula, or switch configuration, is both switches are in the on position. The second formula would be if one switch was off, one switch was on. Now the third formula is the opposite of what we've got, so it would be this switch is on, this switch is off. And then our final and fourth formula would be both switches off. So by knowing this now, we can look at it like this. The AND logic gate, out of 4 possible different ways that we can switch these switches, will only work with one of the possible 4 ways. So it doesn't work with solution 4, it doesn't work, or excuse me, formula 4, it doesn't work with formula 3, doesn't work with formula 2, but it will work with formula 1. And I think I just did that wrong. But I'm pretty sure you guys get the idea. So out of the 4 ways that we can switch these switches, the AND gate only comes on with one of the ways. Okay, we're going to be, using that over a couple of these logic gates. So it's kind of important to know that. And we'll see why here in a little bit. Okay, let's put the AND logic gate up there. Next is the NAND logic gate. Alright, first of all, let's kind of look at our little emblems in the center. If you notice, this emblem looks exactly like the AND logic gate's emblem, with the exception we got a little circle on the output part. Well, the AND says transmits power if all inputs have power. So let's look at the description for the NAND logic gate. Transmits power unless all inputs have power. Okay, so the AND logic gate transmits power if all inputs have power. The NAND logic gate will not transmit power if all inputs have power. Pardon me, please. Once again, let's look at that description. Transmits power unless all inputs have power. So that's kind of telling me that that's like the opposite of what the AND logic gate is. If it requires 2 powers to transmit power for the AND, but transmits power unless you have 2 power inputs, I mean, that's like a carbon copy of the opposite thing. So that's what the little circle on the output means. But it's a little more complicated than that. I'll just mention it real quick. The AND logic gate only transmits power if all inputs have power. The NAND transmits power unless both inputs have power. So let's see that. Let's see how that works, and then it'll be easier to understand. And it looks like we're getting crappy weather, but we've got a clear day shell just in case. I don't think it's quite bad enough yet. Alright, remember, transmits power unless all inputs have power. Well, our AND logic gate required both switches on to transmit power. The NAND is not transmitting power in that formula. So let's try some of the other switch configurations. We'll go to the third formula. Oh, what do you know? It's working. Okay, cool. Let's go to the third switch formula. Oh, it's still working. All right. And finally, the fourth formula is both switches are off. And of course, with both switches off, we're not transmitting power, so it's going to be off. So this is the way we could look at this. The NAND logic gate, out of 4 possible ways that we can switch our switches on and off, it works in 2 of them. The AND only worked in 1 configuration, but the NAND works in 2. So really what that means is the NAND logic gate does the opposite of the AND logic gate and everything else. Once again, we can kind of see how logic falls into describing how the switches work. Okay, I think we got a good look at the NAND. Let's move on. Also, because these symbols are the same, they're classified as brothers or sisters or cousins, formers, roommates, barber, or whatever. Anyways, they're related. And that's why, it's doing the opposite. Okay, enough of that. We're starting to get too technical again. Okay, we've done the AND, we've done the NAND. We are skipping over the NOR, which is this top one. We're skipping over the NOT, which is the second one here. So the next one is the OR logic gate. Okay, the description for the OR logic gate is transmits power if any input has power. Okay, well, that kind of seems obvious. Let's see how that works. We'll hook it up. Okay, our switches are off, so we are in the 4th switch formula. Let's see. I think this one will put us in our 3rd formula according to the chart. And we have 1 switch on. Okay. Oh, it's transmitting power. All right, sweet. Let's go to our 2nd formula, and another friend inviting me to party. Excuse me. I'm really not this popular. Okay, well, yeah, I'm really not this popular, but we may see this several times throughout these clips. I apologize. All right, we are now in our 2nd formula, or our switch configuration, and the logic gate, the OR logic gate, is still working. Okay, let's go to our 1st switch solution, which is both switches on, and wow, it's still working. Well, once again, the OR's requirements is transmits power if any input has power. I think that's what it says. We better look at it again. These bleed together sometimes. Okay. Transmits power if any input has power. Well, in switch configuration 1, both switches have power, and that's any. So if we were to turn one off, it still has any input that has power. And if we go to the next configuration, it's just the opposite. So once again, it still has power until we go to the 4th formula, which is both switches are off. Now, once again, we can look at this kind of logically. The OR logic gate will work with any power on. So even if we're in the 3rd formula, or the 2nd formula, or the 1st formula, all 3 of those will make the OR logic gate come on. But we can see how the word OR fits into it. It works with any or all of the others. Okay. Oh, one more thing before we go. What we can now know from this is, out of the 4 different ways that we can switch our switches, the OR logic gate works with 3 of them. So the AND worked with 1 possible way, the NAND worked with 2 possible ways, but the OR works with 3 possible ways that we can switch our switches on and off. Alright, let's get to the last and final logic gate, which is the XOR. Now, real quick, I'd like to mention something. The X in front of these words like XOR, XNOR, and so on means exclusively. So this would actually be called exclusively OR. If there's any rocket scientists that happen to be watching this video, they're probably cringing every time I say XOR or XNAND or whatever. You know, it's a game. We're playing a game. We don't care. So we're just going to continue to keep calling them the XNOR, XOR, and so on. So if it is making you cringe, sorry, we're going to continue to keep doing it. All right, enough babble. The OR XOR logic gate transmits power if exactly one input has power. Well, you know, we've gotten a really good look at a couple of these logic gates already, and that's only obvious what that means. So let's hook it up. Okay. Transmits power if exactly one input has power. Well, we've got 2. That's not exactly. So we'll flip one off. We're in our second formula. Okay, it's transmitting power. Cool. Let's go to our third formula or switch configuration, transmitting power. Okay, sweet. And of course, our fourth one is no power. So, the XOR logic gate works with 2 of the possible 4 ways that we can switch our switches on and off. And now I think we've gotten a pretty good look at what it takes to make these switches come on and activate them. Now we just need to see what we can use them for. And I think that we'll do that for the next video. Excuse me. Once again, it is kind of getting crappy, so I think this is a good spot to end. And in the next video, we'll just pick it up right from here and continue on. So, I hope I see you on that one. We will be using all 4 of the logic gates that we have seen in this video. Now, you know, just to kind of let you know what's going on, it is going to be used on something that quite a few of you probably already use a logic gate for. But since it's familiar, that's why I want to use it, so it'll help us better understand why it's working. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for stopping in, hanging out with me. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in just a moment on the next video. Alright, so long everybody, and once again, just like always, please, until next time, stay safe and peace. Hello my Wasteland friends, it's me again. And since this video was pre-recorded, we're not going to see the regular outro. Instead, I'd like to show this little reference table or chart showing all the power formulas or switch configurations for each one of the logic gates that we've seen in today's video. So, hopefully this will help you if you're using any of these logic gates. Alright everybody, until next time, thanks. Peace.